In part 2 of this series, we will look at a few books that were published in the 1600s, 1700s and 1800s, which was the era of slavery. Back then, Negroes were forbidden to learn how to read and write. The raw, undiluted truth was being put in books, which the Caucasian colonizers had exclusive access to. As a Negro, you now have access to those old books, and you should be reading, studying, and researching your history in those books. As you are about to see, the next books confirm the same theme we looked at in part 1 of the series. That is, Jews were scattered in sub-Saharan Africa and were put on cargo slave ships to be sold as slaves in Haiti and other parts of the world. Those Jews were the direct descendants of Abraham, Isaac and Jacob, and they were Negroes. So-called Haitians are the descendants of those Jews. America. Being the latest and most accurate description of the New World, containing the original of the inhabitants and the remarkable voyages thither. Originally published in 1671. Page 574. The Portuguese that dwelt on this island informed the Netherlanders that few lived above 50 years there, yet notwithstanding the great gain tempted them to tarry, several of them having 200 or 300 Negroes that worked in the sugar mills. That John III, King of Portugal, sent a colony thither above 200 years before, whom though the unwholesome air destroyed, yet the place was not left desolate, for he sent new inhabitants, who first settled in Guinea, next in Angola, and lastly on the island St. Thomas, that so they might be the better used to the air. That the said king sold all those Jews for slaves that refused to embrace the Roman religion, and caused their children to be baptized, from whom, coming thither in great numbers, most of the present inhabitants were descended. Atlas Geographus, or, a complete system of geography, ancient and modern, for Africa. Originally published in 1714. Page 39. The present Christians in Africa are partly strangers, and partly natives, some of them slaves to the Turks and barbarians, and others free. Some of the Jews who inhabit both sides the Niger derive themselves from Abraham. Others fled hither from Asia when Vespasian destroyed Jerusalem, or from Judea when it was wasted by the Romans, Persians, Saracens, and Christians. Some were banished from Italy, in 1342, from Spain, in 1462, from the Low Countries, in 1350, from France, in 1403, and from England, in 1422. These all differ in habit, and are divided into several wealthy and numerous tribes, but have no dominion, are despised of all nations, and so abominated by the Turks, that they are not admitted to be Mohammedans unless first baptized, and then made use of only to receive their customs, and gather in their taxes. On the classification and geographical distribution of the mammalia, being the lecture on Sir Robert Reed's Foundation, delivered before the University of Cambridge, in the Senate House, May 10, 1859. Page 96. There are some Jews still lingering in the valleys of the Jordan, having been oppressed by the successive conquerors of Syria for ages, a low race of people, and described by trustworthy travelers as being as black as any of the Ethiopian races. Researches into the physical history of mankind. By James Cowles Pritchard. Originally published in 1837. Page 309. A remarkable fact in the history of Loango is that the country contains, according to a statement which was fully credited by Oldendorp, himself a writer of most correct judgment and of unimpeachable veracity, many Jews settled in the country, who retain their religious rights, and the distinct habits which keep them isolated from other nations. Though thus separate from the African population, they are black, and resemble the other Negroes in every respect as to physical characters. An account of Timbuktu and Houssa, territories in the interior of Africa, by El Hage and Salam Shabini, with notes, critical and explanatory. Originally published in 1820. Page 475. This place is reported to be inhabited by one of the lost tribes of Israel, possibly an emigration from the tribe of Judah. Yahuda, in African Arabic, signifies Judah. Yahudi signifies Jew. It is not impossible that many of the lost tribes of Israel may be found dispersed in the interior regions of Africa, when we shall become better acquainted with that continent. It is certain that some of the nations that possessed the country eastward of Palestine when the Israelites were a favored nation, have emigrated to Africa. Anacalypsis, an attempt to draw aside the veil of the Saic Isis, or, an inquiry into the origin of languages, nations, and religions. By Godfrey Higgins. Originally published in 1836. Page 603. The tribe of Judah was not stopped in its migration westward by the sea, or, perhaps when it was driven out from Egypt, part of it moved to the west, along the coast of the Mediterranean, till it got round to Guinea, and there it is yet, with its native curly head, possessing a beautiful country, full of fine rivers, among which are found a river Frat and a Jachin. It would be very curious to examine the language of this people. Edrisi, in the 12th century, says that Jews occupied the country on the river Lamlam, and that it is called Yahandi. This is confirmed by Mr. Bowditch, in his account of the Ashanti country. Traces of the Roman and Moor of twice-trodden tracks through Lombardy and the Spains. By a bachelor. Originally published in 1853. Page 103. The Castilian, in particular, claims to be synonymous with the Spaniard in general, and gives his name to the kingdom, nation and language, and his grand pretension is to be an old one, Castellano Viejo y Rancio, and spotless, sin mancha. That is, uncontaminated with the black blood of new converts from Moor or Jew.